love video games. That must be why I fucking hate them so much. Video games! You stand accused of the crime of being shitty. How do you plead? It's not for me to judge either way. Take it away, Skeletor!
Middle-earth! Shadow of War!
Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor was a fine example of how you take a tired format and turn it into a great game. Middle-earth Shadow of War is a fine example of how you take a great game and turn it into total fuck. 2K Games, by way of Monolith Productions, systematically undermined and deliberately broke the series' major selling point, the Nemesis system, in order to make money off limitless loot box sales. The game's lauded orcs, once procedurally generated unique opponents with varied character traits, were turned into glorified loot drops as players could just buy an army of allied orcs and field them without bothering to play the fucking game. Even without purchasing them in bloody treasure chests, these orcs, the fucking point of the game, are watered down due to Shadow of War drowning players in them to the point where you see all the names and character traits on offer long before the game's over. I once had a push crimp fight a push crimp. There was a new push crimp in town, but it didn't feel any different. And since the game is no longer being driven by the personalities, the very distinct personalities of these orcs, you're just left with another fucking open world action game. Just a fucking another one. Oh, and your legendary orcs, because like I said, they're loot drops now, so you get commons and legendaries and all that shit. You can risk losing those, they can die forever, and they will a lot, because the main point of this game is not to get attached to anything and just buy. The sheer pointlessness of individual orcs was typified for me near the end of the initial campaign, where you're supposed to have a showdown with your biggest orc rival, the one you've fought and been killed by dozens of times, and when it came time to face my nemesis, it was just some random orc I'd never fucking met before. He spoke as if we had a long and storied past, but well, I just met the bloke. For me, it was Tuesday. Orcs were disposable and forgettable because 2K Games wanted to hide them inside loot boxes and turn them into trinkets. As a result, Shadow of War itself was also disposable and forgettable, a soulless open-world action game with story-driven pay-to-win mechanics. A once brilliant and inventive concept was destroyed for wanton profit gains, and that's why Shadow of War is undoubtedly one of 2017's shittiest games. Yooka-Laylee! Yooka-Laylee had many fans. Many fans hungry for the classic days when games like Banjo-Kazooie ruled the roost and Microsoft wasn't forcing Rare at gunpoint to make shit like this. Unfortunately, while Playtonic had the spirit required to craft a nostalgic mascot platformer, it lacked the, well, talent. The main problem with Yooka-Laylee is how it's stuck in the 90s in all the wrong ways. It brings back memories of a time before developers had figured out in-game cameras or knew how to make platforming sections that weren't a bunch of slippery, janky, fucked up shit. With its dated mechanics, horrific camera and awful platforming controls, Yooka-Laylee is the very embodiment of nostalgia gone wrong, a faithful recreation of a 1998 experience without any consideration or concessions made for the many advances in gameplay that have occurred since then. And that's just the unbearable core gameplay. The mini-games and puzzles are even worse somehow, often involving the player transforming into a vehicle or other mutant hybrid that manages to control even worse than normal. Oh, and the characters all sound like total perverts. More like Yooka lay down in a ditch and die, with like flies in your mouth and shit. Yeah.
Horse Racing 2016!
Oh god, Horse Racing 2016 should have thrown up red flags immediately due to the fact it was 2017 when it first made its unbelievable arrival on PlayStation 4. Before then, it had already infested the Xbox One, somehow, and I'm still trying to work out why. Technically, it's older than 2017, but that it made its way to PS4 alongside many other questionable games this year warrants its inclusion. It's a port of an Android game which you can download and play for free, yet on consoles it launched for fucking $12.99? What? What? Craig, you arsehole, is the research right on this? Really? $12.99, no shit. Alright. He's still an arsehole. Horse Racing 2016 is notable for the fact players have very little control over their success in the game. The races are deliberately weighted to favour CPU-controlled opponents until you race an arbitrary number of times and get a better horse, at which point the races become a piss-easy cakewalk and it's the CPU who can't hope to touch you. That is, until you win another arbitrary number of races and the AI-controlled horses get better, at which point you'll be forced to lose over and over until, once again, you get a new horse that's better than everybody else's. There's no design logic behind this, and the need for an actual player to be present seems to be little more than a formality, since the whole game's formula is one gigantic rubber band that the player has no say over. Basically, if you have a better horse, you win, and you only have a better horse when the game says you can have a better horse. Also, it looks like this. Also, it's bollocks. Also, it's 2017 and it's called Horse Racing 2016 current year argument. I mean, for fuck's sake.
Vaccine!
Another one for the how the hell did this get so prolific file. Vaccine is a throwback survival horror that, despite being complete wank and having all the appeal of a corpse in a sauna, nonetheless made its way not just to Steam but to PS4, Xbox One and even the fucking Switch. And it's terrible. Like, it's really, really terrible, everybody. I've seen this game pop up everywhere this year. I turn my head and there it is, fucking Vaccine. Who has been greasing whose palms, and with what horrible, horrible grease? Vaccine seems to have only a surface level, child's understanding of survival horror. You see, it knows Resident Evil was a good game, and it knows what Resident Evil looks like, so it made itself look a bit like Resident Evil and hoped the shitty retro visuals would carry the rest of it. Which it doesn't, because Vaccine is a load of unbalanced garbage that always ends the moment you stumble into a randomised room with a four-legged monster that's faster, stronger and more durable than you, and it pins you into a corner and just hits you and hits you and hits you until you die, and that's every fucking game. Seriously, every run of this roguelike inspired waste of fucking time ended the exact same way, unless it's one of those times where the game ended in a glitch, like this famous moment. Yeah, it was worth playing that clip again. Anyway, this unapologetic romp of interactive atrocity can't even do classic tank controls properly. Not that it should be doing them in the first bloody place. Surprise, surprise, it tries to make player characters handle like they did in the original Resident Evil, already a bad idea, and somehow made those PS1 controls feel even older and more unwieldy than they did in the 90s, with huge truck-like swings when turning even the slightest of corners. Even the simple act of opening a door can be a struggle, since player characters need to face them at exactly the right little spots to interact with the bastards. Ugly, messy, constantly cornering players with practically unbeatable and uninspired monsters, Vaccine is a game that's infected almost every modern platform, and I don't know why. It's probably Jenny McCarthy's fault, because if any game could turn me into an anti-vaxxer, it'd be this fucking one.
Destiny 2!
Activision Blizzard can take a long walk off a short dick. It can really, truly go fuck itself. At least once it's done fucking Destiny 2, a game I gave an impressed 8 out of 10 to back when I reviewed it, but have since written it into a list of 2017's shittiest games due to the fact Bungie and its corporate taskmasters have done all they could to squeeze additional money out of players and insidiously drive them towards the game's loot box store, the Etherverse, a store that Destiny 2 has increasingly built itself around since launch. It's bad enough that things previously available in the original Destiny were locked behind loot boxes in the sequel. It's bad enough that leveling up after a certain point rewards you with loot boxes that can only be opened at the loot box store, where Activision hopes to seduce more cash out of you. On top of that, Bungie hasn't released a major update without breaking something, miscommunicating something, or turning something into yet another crutch to prop up the Etherverse. Destiny 2 was caught lying to players about the amount of experience they were earning for performing activities. Destiny 2's holiday update was designed entirely around loot boxes, which have steadily contained more and more items that confer in-game bonuses, advantages upon the players. Destiny 2's first DLC expansion gated off content previously included as part of the base game, and that's just some of the shit it's pulled in a year where Activision has been seen patenting methods of psychologically manipulating players into spending more money on a game they just fucking bought. Scum, sleazy scumworms. Destiny 2's player base, by the way, has been hemorrhaging, and it's not hard to see why. Bungie has been unable to expand the game without fucking things up, and its boilerplate mealy-mouthed responses of "we're listening to feedback" and "we agree with the community" ring increasingly hollow when the studio has proven committed to trying to slip some bullshit past us time and time again. That's what Destiny 2 is now, a continued experiment on the part of ActiBungie to see what kind of insultingly avaricious crap it can smuggle in under the radar. And so far, they failed in almost every respect. Activision and Bungie have proven so incompetent with Destiny 2, they can't even do greedy right. And greedy is Activision's favourite fucking thing. That should tell you how fucking bad it is. Fuck.
Spear of Destiny!
I mean, in the name of Babby Jesus' sodden diaper. Another game that found its way onto PS4 in a year where Sony thought it was Valve 2.0, Spear of Destiny wants, I think, to be like Dark Souls, except it's broken and doesn't work and it's literally unplayable. Those faults aside, what are Souls like? The sluggish, borderline slow-mo combat and lack of tactical edge to any of the mindless sword swinging combines with stumbling enemies who lop off unbelievable amounts of health with a single connected hit. Connected hits that you don't really have much of a choice over receiving, due to the fact that blocking and dodging is fucking balked. I'm actually quite sure it's impossible to advance more than a handful of fights, let alone beat the bloody thing. That's if it even has an ending. Let's just say, if you can't even code water that works like fucking water, I'm not gonna hold out hope that you made a game with an end credit sequence. I mean, it's like the world's mouldiest knight turned into Jesus. Look at this atrocious fucking spermatozoa. Why is he so mouldy, and why is he also Jesus? Why is he Jesus?
Art of Stealth.
These days we have to pick a single game to represent all the terrible things found on Steam, because otherwise this would be a list full of things you've never heard of, not just partially full of things you've never heard of. This year the Steam ambassador is the Art of Stealth, an hilariously broken game that could be described as Metal Gear Solid meets the opposite of Metal Gear Solid, with a hint of desiccated foreskin. The game's title, by the way, is a lie. There is no art, save for that purchased from an asset store, and there's certainly no fucking stealth. That would require a working stealth mechanic, or working anything. Art of Stealth doesn't even know how interior windows work. This isn't how windows work, video game! But remember, Steam is full of garbage like this, and the Art of Stealth is merely its face for 2017, representing a number of awful, awful games such as these. I'm starting to think Steam Direct's a mistake, everybody.
1, 2, switch!
It's a game about looking your good friend right in the eye and then miming masturbation in front of her. Still, if you want to know what being a stand-up comedian is.
Life of Black Tiger!
Perhaps this year's vomitous opus, a veritable disaster piece, the Shakespeare of shit. This partially working asset flip may still be just an elaborate joke on the part of Sony, we don't know. To this day, its trailer is viewable on the official PlayStation YouTube channel as if Sony endorsed it, and to this day we still don't get what's going on. Sony won't return my calls as I desperately try to find out how Life of Black Tiger not only got onto the PS4 but found itself actively promoted by PlayStation itself. The game itself is hilariously bad, from its terribly written narrative and mission text to its bizarre musical choices and utterly deranged gameplay. It is as if the very concept of art became sentient and decided to punish humanity for striving to be more than shit-covered animals in the woods. Don't try and create nice things, Life of Black Tiger tells us, because I am here. I am negative art. I am negative nice, and my existence renders your creativity meaningless. Like Horse Racing 2016, it was also free on mobile, but when it came to PS4, it had the sheer shitty nerve to charge $10. We are serious on that, Craig, right? $10? Alright, you arsehole. Everyone involved ought to be ashamed, but if you're involved with Life of Black Tiger in any way, shape or form, then shame is likely a foreign concept to you, like game design, or text that doesn't come off as alarmingly racist. I've played this game perhaps more than anybody else in the world, and I still don't quite believe it's real. But it is. It's real, and it's horrendous. An interactive car crash of broken physics, store-bought assets, and Sony's twisted, mutated approval. Also, it has multiplayer.
Star Wars Battlefront 2!
Well. Here we are, and nobody could pretend to be surprised. Star Wars Battlefront 2. In the year of the loot box, Electronic Arts just had to overstep the mark and turn a beloved series based on an even more beloved franchise into a pay-to-win, loot box-fueled, micro-trantastic festival of pure, unfettered greed. To make matters worse, Battlefront 2 was meant to be an apology for Battlefront 2015, itself a rushed and incomplete game, cynically hurried out to cash in on The Force Awakens. And now Battlefront 3 is gonna have to be an apology for Battlefront 2, a game so reliant on gambling-style mechanics it got fucking politicians involved, made international news, and resulted in a Reddit AMA so stupendously hilarious and chock full of corporate cowardice that it will go down in history. And they still haven't answered my questions. Battlefront 2 was, at launch, based entirely around opening loot boxes to acquire and upgrade significant in-game advantages. A pay-to-win system at its most blatant in the AAA space. Battlefront 2 gave instant power to those willing to spend even more money on top of what they already spent. And the game was so naked in its cynicism, it didn't even try to hide the fact it initially took 40 hours of grinding to unlock a signature series character like Darth Vader. You remember Darth Vader, right? He's usually a standard playable hero, but it's like EA knew such an iconic character could make a lot more profit if he was gated off and required an obscene infusion of cash or grinding to acquire. You know, I'm starting to think EA are a bunch of fucking bastards. The backlash was so massive that EA backtracked and has temporarily suspended its microtransactions, but in doing so, it's exposed so much about the AAA industry. First off, the game required rebalancing once the microtransactions were taken away because it took too long to unlock anything, demonstrably showing how games are negatively impacted by their inclusion, whether or not you think they're just optional or give players choice. There was no choice for such a grind, and that's why they had to patch it. Second, EA assured its investors that removing those microtransactions would have no material impact on them, proving that shoveling this shit into premium games is about greed, not need, as some corporate defenders would have you believe. They just wanted to make more and more money on top of their Star Wars game. And if you try and tell me that they aren't going to make their money back just selling a Star Wars game, you're a fucking idiot. Star Wars Battlefront 2 has been such a shit show, it's put the industry at large at risk of regulation over the previously unchecked gambling mechanics that have been sneaking into more mainstream releases. The so-called AAA game industry had a good thing going with its RNG-based gacha scam bullshit, and EA was so fucking raptorial, such a predatory fucking animal, that it might have fucked the entire gravy train up for everybody. And that's funny to me, ha ha ha, because game publishers can fuck off and die forever. Most of them anyway. Some of them are alright. Not EA. EA can definitely fuck off and die forever. We can bury it next to all the studios that EA itself fucking killed. The current state of Battlefront 2 is just sad. Without the microtransactions, it's clear the game was desperately hammered into a vaguely round shape to fit a square hole, while it remains a buggy and laggy experience, at least on Xbox One where I had a free copy because fuck paying for this shit. So it's broken, battered, and materially obsolete for EA's purposes. It's a pointless waste of fucking time, and if there's any justice in the world, it will cost Electronic Arts the Star Wars license as soon as Disney has an opportunity to seize it, which will be just desserts as opportunistic seizure is EA's stock and trade. Electronic Arts, you scurrilous maggots, you lice in the dirt. Every day you continue to exist as a company is a day that's worse than it could be. So fuck off, fuck you, and thank God for me, shitheads. I don't even think the single player is very good either. Electronic Arts, why should I give a flying tuppenny shit about Anthem now? Activision, why should I give a flung spigot of jizz about any games you want to hype us up about over the preceding year? I shouldn't give a shit, because this year, more than perhaps any other year, you've shown your truest of true colours, you've tipped your hand more than ever, and you've shown us what you think video games are. And what you think is grotesque. So to reiterate, in case I haven't made it perfectly clear by now, fuck them, fuck you, thank God for me, and fuck off. Oh, and do have a delightful new year, okay?
This fantastic ancient world has been invaded by powerful enemies who rule in the dark. Centuries have passed since Lords defeated them with the Spear of Destiny. Now monsters and orcs dominate these lands with complete freedom without anyone to confront them. Only a remnant member of the Light Swords believes in this ancient story. He travels through different places in search of the legendary Spear of Destiny. To liberty again, this world of the powerful enemies as their yours ancestors did several centuries ago. The great and eternal epic battle begins.